Hi, welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman. Today we are back to my block of the month. My Spring is in the Air 2025 block of the month pattern. It's a beautiful pattern. We are on month 3, which is where we're going to be working on block number 3 and block number 4. This is what the pattern looks like. If you haven't joined us already, I hope that you'll go out to my website, quiltingwithlori.com, go over to my shop, scroll down to the courses tab, and you'll be able to join the Spring is in the Air block of the month there. It's $25 for the entire pattern, all of the PDFs, as well as the videos. It'll remain on my website for you permanently, so you can work at it at your own pace. And this pattern is also something that my membership, my YouTube membership, will receive. And if you have joined and registered for the class, or if you're a member, you will get the PDF and the instructions in your email box. Now, let's get to the tabletop and see how these blocks are going to go together. Before we go to the tabletop, let's see what we've done already. This is block 1. This is the medallion center. Isn't that adorable? With the picket fence, the birds, and the birdhouse. And then that was month number 1. Month number 2 were 3 of these wonderful, wacky birds, and they will go around the quilt. So how fun are they? They're just adorable. And so that is what we did in month 2. Now it's month 3. Now let's go to the tabletop. All right, so here is the pattern. You'll get the instructions for month 3 in your email if you've already registered or if you're a member of my YouTube channel, my Block of the Month YouTube channel. And this is the PDF of both of the blocks. This one includes templates. This one just gives you a diagram, a key code for you to understand where the different pieces are going to go together. In this is kind of a log cabin birdhouse that we're going to be putting together. And that's the first one we are going to be putting together. The instructions let you know the width of fabric strips you would need to cut out to actually get your fabric pieces ready. I've already begun block number 3. And as you can see, it's going together like a little log cabin. And I am going to lay out these pieces here and show you how easy that is to put together. All right, so I'm gonna show you how this goes together. We're gonna follow this key here. And the instructions tell you exactly what width of fabric strips you need to cut or a square. And so you start out with the G square, which is the green in my case, and you can certainly use any colors for your pattern that you want. The instructions just correspond to the colors that I'm using. So I've got a green square in the center. Then the 2 F strips are going to be placed on each side. And again, the instructions tell you the width and the length that you place on each side. And then you have on top 2 different E strips that we're going to be placing on there. And I've got those right here. This is an E strip. That's an E strip. One, of course, is blue, and one is this pink. And that just follows that log cabin pattern. So you sew this together first, and then you sew these to the top and the bottom. Then to continue, we are going to be adding E strips on each side. And of course, what you want to do is follow the colors. So I've got blue on this side, and I've got pink on this side. So I'm adding this darker pink over here. And I will sew those to these 2 sides, and just go ahead and press all your seam allowances either open or to the dark. It doesn't matter, whichever works better for you. Once those are sewn on, then you're going to do the C and C, which is the bright blue and the bright pink. And of course, once the seam allowances are in there, this is all going to work. So let me go ahead and first of all, I'll stitch these together, press it, and then I'll stitch these together, and I'll bring it back to the table. So it's basically a log cabin where you just keep going in a circle where you're adding the logs to each side of the block. All right, I have this completely finished with the bright blues and the bright pinks. Now we're going to continue by adding, we're going to follow our code here. We're adding C's, and these are the light background. This is the sky background in my case. This is sky. It kind of looks white here on the table. It's so light, but it is a beautiful pale blue batik. So these are going to go on each side. And then we're going to be adding some browns. It's going to be a D brown at the bottom, and there's going to be another brown at the top. However, for this brown at the top, we are going to snowball each corner of this roof unit because this is going to become the roof. And to snowball that, we are simply going to draw a diagonal line. Let me grab a little ruler here. Simply draw a diagonal line across that. You're going to stitch on that line and then flip it open, and that creates that beautiful little diagonal roof that we need for the top of our birdhouse. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew these C units to each side, and then I'm going to sew, I'm going to snowball this, and I'll bring it back and show you what that looks like. I've completed this part of the block. I've got the brown base on the bottom. These are the two sky sections on the sides. And you can put your center together either direction with your blue or your pinks or whatever color you're using in any direction. It doesn't matter. Now I'm going to add the roof section. And of course, what I needed to do was snowball the two sides of that brown strip. And I simply drew a diagonal line as I had shown you before. And I stitched along that diagonal line and then flip it out. I trimmed away that excess right there already. And now on this side, I'm simply going to trim away this excess. I'll use a ruler, give myself 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and trim that away. Now my roof is ready to be sewn on, and block number 3 is complete. It needs to be scored up to 10 inches. All right, so now we're going to start on block 4, which is this birdhouse block. Let me give you a picture here. That's a close-up of it. Here it is. This is the block that we are going to be working on next. And this one involves a number of templates. So you will get a sheet of templates. Make sure when you print them at 100%. Do not cut this sheet apart. Keep everything intact. I'm going to just give you measurements for these squares for M and J, which is in the instructions. You don't have to make templates for those, but make templates for everything else. And a number of these are reversed. So I made one template D, and I will reverse it for F. I made one template I, and I will reverse it for K. And was there another one? Yes, and then I made one template A, and I'll reverse it for B. That will help you to be more efficient with your plastic template film. So for the G square, which is, we're going to start in the center with the G square, the measurements are in the pattern, so just grab those. And then let me start as we walk all the way around. I start out by giving you the width of fabric strip measurement that you can cut for each of these different fabrics. And this is my sky, and I give you the width of fabric measurement to cut. And I have literally put these two together, right sides together or wrong sides together, either or. And this is my A and B. And because I am placing it on here with two fabrics together, right sides together or wrong sides together, and tracing this, one of them will be the reverse. So one will be A and one will be B. I'm doing the same thing with D and F. I need the reverse. So I'm simply going to place that on there, trace them. And because I have two fabrics here that are right sides together, I will have a D and an F. F is the reversed. And then I also need to cut 4 little squares from my light background fabric, and the measurements are all in the pattern. So go ahead and get those traced. As I have mentioned in the past, I love to use this template. It's a plastic template marking pencil. It's a wax pencil. And when you trace onto the template plastic. It doesn't come off on your hands, therefore you're not getting anything on your fabric. I don't know if you've ever used ink pens or magic marker or any kind of a marker on plastic film. You'll find that it often gets all over your hands and then it's on your fabric and it messes everything up. So I do encourage you to find these template marking pencils. They're at quilt shops, they're online, you can find them anywhere. So I'm simply going to trace all of these and cut them out, and I'll have my light fabric. So for the next fabric, I'll give you the width fabric strip that you need of the blue, and we'll simply trace out our template I and K and our template L, and that's going to be cut out and then placed on this with the fabric strip. I have folded it so that I have and for batiks it doesn't matter, this particular batik can either be right side, wrong side, either direction, it doesn't matter. But I've placed two fabrics together here and I'm going to cut out, I'm going to trace one of the I and then the K will be reversed. So I'll actually get two templates here, the I and the K reversed from this piece right here. And then over here, I am going to place my L template and I will trace it and cut it out. And then I'll have an L, an I, and a K. So that will take care of the blue. Then we have this bright blue, and I give you the width of fabric strip that you need to cut. And you're going to be tracing out the E and the H templates on this and cutting those out. Just need one of each of those. And then on this brown for the roof, we're going to be tracing out a G and a C and placing that on those, tracing them, cutting those out. So I'm going to go ahead and trace them all, cut them out, and I'll bring the pieces back and I'll show you how we're going to put the block together. I have gone through and traced out and cut out all of the various fabrics that I needed, from the sky, from the light blue, from the bright blue, from the brown, and of course the green square. And then there are some sky squares that I had to cut, and we're going to simply cut them on the diagonal. I think I mentioned earlier that we were going to snowball this square. We're really going to make a square and a square out of this. So we're simply going to take each of those little triangles, line them up, center them on the square, sew a 1/4 inch stitch align, sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, press them open, and then do the same with the other two squares. And then we will have created a square and a square that will be the very center of this block. Let me go ahead and stitch these. I'll show you how simple that is to be done. I have simply sewn this the two triangles on each side of the square. You can see these little points are, I've pressed it open. I'm going to trim away that excess fabric there, and then I will simply add these last two triangles and stitch across the top and the bottom, and then I'll press those open and we will have a square and a square. Let me do that. I'll be right back. So to create the square and square, I've used the green and the sky fabric, and I've just gone ahead and sewed those on each side, pressed it open. Make sure that you maintain that 1/4 inch seam allowance. You need that all the way around the points. And the center of your square is ready for our birdhouse. Now let's see what we're going to be attaching all around it. And again, follow your key code. We're going to need our I and K templates here. And let me move this out of the way. I is going to go here. K is going to go there. So we're going to sew these along here. And that creates a little strip right across the center. Then we are going to sew an E, which is a blue in my case. Yours might be a different color. That will get sewn to the bottom. And of course, when all the seam allowances are in, that will all fit. So that goes on the bottom. We're going to be sewing this H to the top. So that will come across the top. So there we have 3 rows at this point. Then we're going to take the D and the F, which are these bottom pieces here, and they are mirror image. Let me move this out of the way. They are going to be sewn on each side of this. So they're going to be right there to square up the bottom of that block. And then we need to add the brown roof as well as the sky at the top. I am going to bring this down. I'm going to put it on a gray mat so you can see this a little bit better. All right, so I have placed this on a gray mat. Hopefully you can see this better. So there's the sky on each side of the bottom of the unit. And then up here on the top of this top part of the birdhouse, we're going to add L. So L will get placed there. And then we need our C and G, which is the brown roof. And C will go here, G will go there. And then we need the two pieces, the A and B sky units, and they are the reverse image. And they will get sewn up here, and that will square it all up. So once all of the seam allowances are in here, then it will get squared up to 10 inches. So what I'm going to do right now is sew this first row right here and show you what that looks like, and then I'll keep bringing it back to the table so you can see it as it grows into the block. I have sewn this row together. I've attached the bottom, which is E. I've attached that. Now I'm going to sew each of these onto the sides. And what you might want to do is pin them. So there is a lot of bias here, and you don't want things to stretch out. So you might want to pin at both ends and right in the center to make sure that nothing stretches. I'll sew these, I'll bring it back, and then we'll continue working. As I have been stitching, I'm just pressing away from each of the last seams. So in some cases, the seam allowances are coming into the dark, but it appears that just the light fabric is going to show through. If you have a very dark fabric there, then you might want to make sure that it's pressed toward the center, but I just pressed it away from all of the additional seams. So that's simply how I did that. So this part is now done, and now we can add this to the top. We can add this to that piece right here. And then we can add these two to each side as well as these two. Let me go ahead and add this one and this one. I'll bring it back and show it to you. All right, so I have H and L sewn to the top of the unit. And now I'm going to attach C and then G. So C will go on first. We'll sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it open, and then G will go on over here. And then the last thing we'll do is add these. Right, so I have now sewn C and G on, and make sure when you sew these diagonal pieces on these diagonal seams that you pin each end and then pin in the center, and then whatever part of your block, and typically it's going to be the block that you've already sewn together, make sure that is on your feed dogs, because it probably is a little bit longer because there's a lot of bias there. And then by having it pinned all the way through, then that will feed that excess fabric in and make it go on there beautifully. Again, on this side, pin both sides, pin in the center. I made sure that my block itself was on my feed dogs as I stitched, and it just helped to make sure that any excess fabric very nicely fed into that. And so all of that bias is cared for beautifully. Now this part of the block is ready to go, and all I need to do is add both of these. And again, what I just mentioned, go ahead and pin each side, pin the center, press it open. Same thing over here, pin each side, pin the center, press it open, and then you will have a finished block. Once that's finished, it should be squared up to 10 inches. I finished block 3 and block 4, and I think they're just adorable. They're going to go so beautifully with this quilt. Be sure with your templates, I like to keep my templates with its template pages in a plastic sleeve. You can keep those with your pattern so you don't lose those. And of course, you could put even your instructions in that same sleeve so you have everything that you need at your fingertips. We're done with month number 3, which is block 3 and block 4. Next month in December, which is block of the month number 4, we're going to be working on blocks number 5 and 6. And that will be this house and the post that it sits upon. And it's just going to be an adorable block to create. Very simple, too. We'll be able to get it done quickly. But you'll see here that the house is one block and the post is another one. It's sitting on that post. So we'll be working on that in December. Thank you so much for joining me for the Block of the Month 2025. Spring is in the air. This, of course, was month number 3. Next month will be month number 4, and we'll be working on the next 2 blocks in the series. Can't wait to see you there. Until then, happy quilting.